Welcome to another Goods In video from TDCat Tech. Today I'm looking at the Anker PowerConf C300. This is just a webcam, and you don't get that many decent webcams being released these days. Because, to be honest, I mean, most of the time, the ones built into a laptop or a phone, the cameras, they're probably better than these, and most people are just perfectly happy using those. So there's just no need for any of these anymore. But good to see one being released. This is pretty new. This is from Anker, and this retails at £120. It's a full HD, 60 frame per second webcam. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, and you're kind of saying, why can't this be 4K? Why isn't this a 4K webcam? Well, to be perfectly honest, 4K webcams are really not very necessary as far as I'm concerned, because if you're streaming, if you're like a gamer and you're streaming and you want to use a webcam like this, well, to be honest, you're probably going to be using something better. But if you do want to use something like this, you're going to shove the image into the corner of the screen, and it doesn't matter the slightest whether you have a 4K camera or an HD camera. If you're doing this, using this for work, for Zoom or for Skype or Teams or whatever, you don't need any better than Full HD currently, because the bandwidth requirements for Full HD, for 4K, would be just too much, and the chances are that there will be somebody in the group receiving you that can't stream 4K anyway, and you would never take advantage of it. So in reality, a Full HD webcam currently, anyway, in 2021, is still sufficient. However, I'm very pleased to see that this is a 60 frames per second webcam with 115 degree field of view, 2 microphones, and high dynamic range. Yeah, a bit of probably just put on there to look fancy. And it says it's smart because it has AI autofocus. Yeah, again, as I always say, when the word AI gets thrown in there, I'm never convinced. Anyway, so let's peel this off. It's actually got a little bit of, it's come with a little bit kind of chipped off. I don't know whether it's just been knocked or something, but it's only the film. There doesn't seem to be any real damage to the box. But let's take a look inside. And we have a user manual, which is, by the look of things, in many, many languages. Anker, what do you think of our work? Very good. Download the software. So yeah, you do need to use software with this, I think, to get the best out of it. It will work, I think, just connecting straight up. You don't actually have to sort of install any drivers or anything anymore. I mean, I don't think you've had to do that for about 10 years with any devices. But there we go. Got the USB-C cable here. So it's a straight USB-C to USB-C cable. But don't worry if you haven't got USB-C on your computer, because you do get provided with a USB-C to USB-A adapter as well. So you can just, plug one end into there and you've got a standard cable. Now this isn't particularly long, this cable, but it doesn't really matter too much. I think this is what, I'm going to guess about 1.2 meters or maybe 1 meter, which to me isn't really enough for a webcam. I would expect it to be more than that. I would want it to be more than that. And they're privacy filters there that you can put on and just slide across, I think. And here's the webcam itself. So move the box out. Let's move the box out the way and take a look at the webcam. Let's get the camera nice and close here so we can have a good look around the camera. Pretty nice looking thing. Normal webcam, really. But I've been using a Logitech C922 for the last however many years, and if this is any better than that, well, I'd be pleased, I suppose. It's better in the sense of it's got a higher spec frame rate wise. I don't think the C922 does 60 frames per second at full HD. But then again, I don't know how many times you'll actually be able to take too much advantage of that. But here we go. It's got a fairly standard design clip on the bottom there, that you can just hook over a monitor in any sort of which way. That's pretty normal, actually. It's exactly the same as the current Logitech one I've got in every way. So it just folds out, and then you've got this bit that folds out and hooks around the back of your monitor if you want it to, or you can just use it like that. And it's got a 1/4 screw in the bottom there, so you can attach a little tripod plate there and just mount it on a little tripod, or anything with 1/4, of course. And it's got that's kind of nice rubber, sort of rubberized there, so you can so the plate will stick to it. Or alternatively, if you just put it down like that, it doesn't move around too much. If you just put it on the ground like that. So rotates that way. And where is I'm just going to peel this plastic off the outside and see. Okay, so it's a matte finish. It's a really glossy finish on the front here. And you know what? For £120 for a webcam, I would expect some pretty good results. So I am very interested to see how well this performs. I'll compare it to my C922, the Logitech, and I'll compare it to the built-in webcam on the Macbook Pro M1. But one of the main reasons that I was curious to look at this, was because the C922 has a problem with exposure. It has a problem whereby it will overexpose bits of the image, underexpose bits of the image. It never gets it quite right. It just can't see a face and say, oh, actually, I know you're wearing a dark t-shirt, but I'm still going to expose you correctly anyway. It just sees a dark t-shirt, way overexposes the image. It's just awful at auto exposure, and always has been. If this can do it better with its AI functionality, then then that's a bonus as far as I'm concerned. So there we go. The USB-C slots nicely into the back there. That's quite neat. And as I mentioned, it doesn't matter about this cable being short, because of course it's not a fixed cable to the camera. So if you want to put another one in there, a different one in there, a longer one, then you can. So I've actually got some other USB-C cables which I will be able to use on this and just plug in, and they're like about 3 meters long. So hopefully that will solve that problem. So there we go. That's the Anker PowerConf C300. But more importantly now, let's take a look at how it performs. Right then, let's get into my MacBook here. And appreciate you can't see the screen right now, but I'm just going to plug this in straight off. I haven't plugged it in once at all before, and we'll just see what it does when I plug it in. See whether it is straightforward to just get going, without any kind of software. So at the moment, there you can see it's got my MacBook mic set up. So let's see if it can actually find. So it's immediately found the PowerConf, no problem at all there. And what about video? I see no reason why it wouldn't have. So there's me. I'm not sure whether this will record on the screen recording or not. And let's have a look at the Anker. Okay, well, it's kicked in. No problems. All right. Yeah, it looks okay. Hard to say, actually, at this point. So let's record some footage and just see how well it does. But so far, with just plugging it in and doing nothing but it's detected straight away without any difficulties. First of all, this is the MacBook Pro camera. So this is the 720p camera on the MacBook. I've tried to kind of not position the MacBook in any sort of like really nice way with backlit or anything. I've just shoved it on the desk like most people tend to, and have it pointing up in that horrible way, because this is just how most people do their calls. So I figured I'll just try it like that, and then I can put the Anker PowerConf C300 right next to it and do a fair, pretty much a direct comparison. So let's switch to that now. So let's try that again with the Anker PowerConf C300. This is the image you get from that. Ooh. Difficult one, actually, based on my first impressions on the screen here. It just looks so over-processed on this. I'm thinking that this is currently set to 30 frames a second, not 60, so I might try changing that in the software. But field of view is massive, really, really wide. I mean, yeah, God, it's right across it. huge field of view. Really good if you need it, I suppose. But I just feel it's still just over sharpened and over processed. It doesn't look natural on the screen. As for the sound, well, I took a listen back to one of the files I did a few seconds ago, and the sound on the Anker was terrible. If you stack them side by side with the MacBook Pro versus the Anker, the sound on the Anker was awful. But again, I have to double check all this and see whether it really is. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to try and make sure this is set to 60 frames a second, because it doesn't look like it is at the moment. So that's definitely set to 60 frames a second now. Not great with the movement from the screen there. Not keeping up. It's a well-lit room, this, at the moment. I've got some fairly decent video lights on here. So, don't know whether... Let's see whether it's hitting the processor at all on the actual computer. I realise you can't see this at the moment, but I think it might be, actually. That's not good, is it? Well, so this is the Anker C300 anyway. Make of it what you will. You can make the decision as to which one looks best. Wow, this looks awful. I don't know what the MacBook's doing to my webcams here, but it's making them look terrible. This is the webcam that I use every day on calls for work, and I use that's obviously through a Windows laptop, and I'm convinced it looks a lot better than this. No. Scrap that. Turns out I didn't have the quality setting right on QuickTime, which is where I'm recording this at the moment. So it hadn't kind of ramped the resolution of the camera up to the maximum it could. So this is the Logitech C922. Looks much better than it did a second ago. I'm sure you'll agree. So I have to check the same on the Anker as well now and see whether or not that was set correctly or not. And final test on the C300. This is I've taken some of the field of view back in a little bit, just so that it's not showing quite so much of the room. But to me, it just looks like a digital zoom. It looks artifacty, and it's really not nice at all. So far, not massively impressed. Not for £120. God, I mean, I was really hoping for decent image quality out of this, and really pretty good audio as well. I mean, I'm only 30 centimeters from the mics now, in a sort of room that's got all kind of acoustic panels on the wall and stuff. So I was really hoping for better than this. Anker, come on. If you're going to release a webcam, make it a good one, because this is the PowerConf C300, and it looks okay. But if you're thinking that a 720p MacBook Pro built-in camera, color-wise, it seems much more natural. Yes, it doesn't have the resolution, but it's not over-sharpened. It's not, and audio-wise, absolutely blows it away. All right, so I'm just looking at the software here, and there's not really too much to it. Obviously, as soon as I went into the software, it upgraded the firmware, but you've got options to change the resolution of the camera, so you can operate the camera at 360p, 720p, or 1080p. Then change the frame rate from 30 to 60. So I've got it set both to 1080p and 60 frames a second. Then you can, if you want, set the field of view to be something a little bit smaller. So maybe you don't want to include everything in there, and the whole kind of width of the room or something, and just sort of reduce it down like that. But it looks like that's kind of zooming in on the sensor. I seem to be losing some quality there. Not sure. So anyway, that's set to 115 degrees. Then you've got flexible angles, so auto frame and solo frame, whether the camera sort of tracks you in solo frame, or whether that allows multiple people to be in the frame. In auto frame, HDR, let's just try enabling that. Not sure what that does. Really make any difference, does it? And anti-flicker, which we'll set to 50 Hertz, and hasn't really done much at all. Then in the image settings, there is the option to reduce sharpness, but again, it just seems to be kind of reducing sharpness in software. So I mean, given this sort of image, I would probably say I wanted to reduce the sharpness just a bit, because it just looks a bit harsh, the image. So let's just take it down a little bit like that, and then I'd probably add a bit more saturation into this image as well. It looks a bit lacking in color. Maybe not quite that much, so just a little bit more like that, and maybe reduce the contrast ratio just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it looks okay, it's not too bad. And then there is the option here as well to flip everything horizontally if you want to. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so apart from that, nothing really else in the software. What else do we have down there? Settings. No, it's just bog standard stuff. But the big question is, does this retain the setting? Does the camera retain the settings even when the software isn't running? Because that's really quite important. So let's have a look and set it to something crazy. Let's really kind of, well, in fact, no, I'll tell you what, I'll set the saturation right down like that, and see whether or not it stays like that if I then quit this software and now go into the camera in something else like zoom here, and see whether or not it will have retained that or not. So I'll go into the preferences in zoom and into the video. No, that's the FaceTime camera. Okay, here, let's change. Yes, it does. It does appear to retain the settings. You don't have to be in the software. You can set the settings. Does it retain a camera pull out? Let's see. I'm going to just take the camera out of there now, and it's switched back automatically to the FaceTime camera. So let's plug it back in again and see whether or not it will. Again, yes, that is great news. Perfect. A camera that actually retains the settings that you set after being taken out of the computer and not being in the software that you set them in. Brilliant. That's really good news. Okay, so there we go. That about wraps it up. Just a quick test there, and run over the Anker PowerConf C300, a 1080p 60Hz webcam. I thought that my C922 was okay. But in those tests, really the C922 looks much worse than the Anker. But the Anker doesn't look great. It looks a bit over-processed and stuff. But I think it might just be the fact I'm using it on a different laptop I'm not used to seeing. So I'm going to have to test this on my work computer come Monday, and find out whether or not it's actually better than the C922. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this unboxing and quick first look, and I will see you soon.